Simulating wind in video games is hard, and to achieve it, developers combine 4 sneaky techniques to trick you into thinking there's wind, when really there isn't any at all. The advantage that wind has over its elemental counterparts is that it's invisible. Games don't need to render or animate a physical mass with complex reflections, refractions, or other advanced materials. All developers need to do is show the effects of wind, and while this is not always easy by any means, it's a lot simpler than programming an entire ocean, for example. Today we're going to break down 4 key areas in which developers aim to showcase these effects: static reactive objects, dynamic objects, particle systems, and audio. Static reactive objects are objects that stay in place but visibly react to wind through motion. They typically remain rooted to fixed points, and wind is expressed through animation or vertex shader deformation, something game engines are pretty good at these days. Their motion is often looped, procedural, or physics-assisted, and common examples include flags waving on poles, curtains billowing by an open window, or foliage and grass swaying gently in a breeze. This kind of movement used to be entirely hand animated, but these days it's common to rely on in-engine tools such as vertex shaders, cloth simulations, or bone rigs. Wind strength and direction can oftentimes be mapped to the shader as well for dynamic realism. These seemingly small details are the most visually immediate indicators that wind is present. They give players subtle cues that communicate the environment's liveliness, setting mood and tone with the benefit of being cheap to render, especially with shaders or looping low-frame animations. Dynamic objects are a little more costly. They are unanchored objects within a scene that are moved physically by wind. Their motion is often dictated by real-time physics calculations, and they often collide with other physics objects and the environment around them, and come to rest when the wind fades. Think of debris fluttering through an alley, or crates and barrels being thrown around in a storm. Most dynamic objects are simulated via rigid body physics and force fields, features built into most modern game engines. They're more performance-intensive than animated objects, and so are often used in cinematic sequences where optimizations can reduce performance impact, one such example being through scripted animations. Dynamic objects are important because they add a sense of realism and interactivity. When wind can physically move object, the world feels, ironically, more grounded and reactive, adding a sense of chaos or power to wind. It's not just a backdrop, it's alive. Particle systems consist of many small, transient elements that simulate the presence and direction of wind, such as snow, dust, ash, or leaves falling from trees in some cases. They're often small, lightweight, and decorative, and move according to wind direction or procedural behavior. They help to add texture, scale, and depth to environments. Again, most modern engines have built-in particle emitter systems with parameters that can be adjusted on the fly, such as direction, strength, speed, and amount of the specified particle. Particle systems are generally considered polish and help to reinforce aspects of an environment rather than create it from scratch, for instance dust glistening as it floats in a sunbeam. And lastly, but arguably most importantly, audio. Sound effects are the emotional glue that tie the other 3 aspects together. Wind has no visual form, and so the first, and sometimes only, signal players get that there is any wind at all is the sound it makes. For most of us, what we hear falls secondary to what we see, and so we cannot overstate how important it is not to forget about sound design, especially when dealing with something like wind. It's imperative in conveying mood and building a sense of atmosphere. It works when you're not looking at it and can tell unique stories all by itself. A fun challenge we'd like to set for you is to go outside and, as you're going about your day, take note of 4 or 5 things you can hear that are caused by the wind. You get bonus points if you can't see that thing directly. Combining these 4 aspects in creative ways is how games achieve a multi-sensory illusion of wind, and some games go above and beyond in this regard, not just using wind for ambience, but for gameplay-driven use cases. Sniper Elite 4 asks players to account for wind with every shot. Journey is a game where the wind is a character in its own right, controlling pacing and emotion, with harsh winds slowing you down and soft breezes giving moments of peace. Ghost of Tsushima uses wind as a subtle navigation system. Instead of quest markers or pathways, the wind will organically guide you through the world, and sometimes in open world games, strong winds or dust storms are used to cover up loading zones or the spawning in of assets. There are many uses for and implementations of wind in video games, and we hope you learned some of the basics today of how wind is brought to life. We encourage you to go back through some of your favourite games and notice how wind is used. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye for now.